A Fox News alert, the NSA director warning Congress that China could shut down America's power grid and saying one or two other countries are capable of doing the same thing.
We have heard this dire scenario before, but it's the first time the nation's top cyber official is publicly confirming it. This is happening now.
President Obama set to pave the way for millions of illegal immigrants to gain legal status with one stroke of his pen. But will this announcement, coming tonight in a primetime address, set a divisive tone for relations with the new Republican-controlled Congress?
Make no mistake, when the newly elected representatives of the people take their seats, they will act.
Plus, after close calls at one of America's busiest airports, the FAA launches an investigation into drones getting way too close to passenger jets. And digging out from an epic snowstorm. The Buffalo area breaking records and bracing for even more snow.
The wind is what makes it the worst. It's just crazy.
Is there any end in sight? It's all happening now. Let's get first to our top story. President Obama going it alone on immigration, unveiling executive action tonight that could shield up to 5 million illegal immigrants, from deportation. Welcome to Happening Now. I'm John Scott.
And I'm Shannon Breeman for Jenna Lee. The president making his announcement tonight in prime time, 8 o'clock Eastern. And Capitol Hill is gearing up for a battle. Democrats call the move bold and decisive, while Republicans are up in arms, saying the president is overstepping his constitutional authority. For more on the stakes involved, let's bring in Chris Wallace, anchor of Fox News Sunday. Chris, great to see you.
Good to be with you, Shannon.
All right, the president is saying, I promised to do it. I'm simply following through on my promise.
Well, it depends on which promise, because I think there were 22 times as president that Barack Obama said he couldn't do this. And the White House is saying, well, he was talking about massive, comprehensive immigration reform. No, he said, when asked questions about it, that he specifically couldn't do this, which is to keep families from being split up, where one member of the family is legally in this country and another is deported. Specifically asked about that, which is what he's going to do tonight. He said, I can't do it. I'm bound by the laws of Congress. At one point, he even said, I'm not the emperor, I'm the president. And now, of course, all of that is, as was said by another Republican president, inoperative.
Yeah, and I talked to Senator Hatch yesterday, of course, one of the top GOP senators, longtime guy there on the Hill, about yesterday whether the president is baiting him, because there are a lot of folks thinking that it's a perfect setup to hurt the GOP in 2016, because if they're too vehemently against this, they're going to alienate a very important voting bloc for them, the Hispanic voting bloc.
Well, I think there are two dangers for Republicans. You put your finger on one of them, which is exactly that. Hispanics, particularly in presidential election years, are enormously important in a number of states, can make the difference. We saw in 2012 where Mitt Romney lost the Hispanic vote by 44 points to Barack Obama. So that can be a big deal. And if Republicans are seen as being not anti-executive action, but anti-immigrant or anti-immigration, there's no question it'll hurt them with the Hispanic voting bloc. Then the other problem, when you talk about baiting, is whether or not they're going to overreact to this. And there's a real debate in the Republican Party about this, Shannon, as you well know. There are some who say, look, we've got to do business on a bunch of other things. We can't, overreact to this. But there are a lot of others who say this is a complete unconstitutional violation of the separation of powers, and that they should overreact, if you will, to it, or react appropriately, either by cutting off funding or refusing to confirm some of the president's nominees. Some people are talking about refusing to invite him to Congress, which they have to do, to make his State of the Union speech. So there are a lot of questions here for Republicans, both in terms of the politics versus Hispanic voters, and also the politics in terms of how they deal with governing as opposed to opposing this president's action.
Yeah, and at least one House Republican today floating the I word, impeachment. How does leadership corral the various factions just within the GOP? How do they get on the same page? Do you think the leadership's up to it?
Well, I think in terms of impeachment, that'll be pretty easy. I mean, that's a long, complicated process. You need a super majority in the Senate. That's going to go nowhere. I mean, you'll hear people call for it. I don't think that goes anywhere. The funding issue, whether or not they're going to fund, the government runs out of money again on December 11th, and the question is, are they going to fund the government or are we going to risk a shutdown? And the more likely, the greater danger from that point of view is that they attach provisions to it, which the president will then say, as he did with the Obamacare shutdown in 2013, look, I'm not going to sign this bill. He vetoes it, but the Republicans get blamed for shutting down the government. Very delicate. There are two legitimate sides to the argument, but there's a lot riding on it in terms of the Republicans and their new majority in both the House and the Senate.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for giving us part of your Thursday today.
My pleasure.
And of course, the immigration showdown is going to be a big topic on Fox News Sunday. Tune in when Chris interviews Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, a member of the Judiciary Committee. Check your local listings for the time in your area.